Christmas Eve, the tree is lit, the ham is in the oven, and my husband just texted that he would be home by midnight. He lied. What I discovered that night in a cabin 45 miles away would shatter everything I thought I knew about my marriage, my safety, and the father of my 3-month-old twins. A pregnant mistress, $3 million in hidden offshore accounts, and a life insurance policy on me that made my blood run cold. But here is what my husband did not expect. He forgot that I used to be a lawyer. He forgot that I have a photographic
Therefore,
memory.
as to the charge of,
and he forgot the
we,
most
the
dangerous
jury,
thing
find
of all.
you guilty.
He forgot that angry women built this country. This is the story of how I lost everything. How I was arrested, humiliated, and had my children ripped from my arms. How a woman I had never met kidnapped my babies and tried to flee to Mexico. And how I burned my old life to the ground and built something better from the ashes. My name is Rachel Miller. And if you are listening to this wondering if your gut feeling is right, stay with me, because this story might just save your life. 18 months ago, I was decorating a Christmas tree, believing I had the perfect life. I was wrong about everything except one thing. I was wrong to trust, but I was right to fight. My name is Rachel Miller, and this is the story of how I lost everything, and then burned my old life to the ground so I could build something better from the ashes. If you are listening to this while folding laundry, or driving to work, or lying awake at 3 in the morning wondering if your gut feeling is right, I need you to hear me. That feeling in your stomach, the one telling you something is wrong, trust it. I wish I had trusted mine sooner. The Christmas lights blinked red and green across the living room as I adjusted the angel on top of our tree. Noah was sleeping against my left shoulder. Liam was fussing against my right. Both 3 months old. Both perfect. Both exhausting in that beautiful way that only new mothers understand. I had not slept more than 3 consecutive hours in 12 weeks. My body ached in places I did not know could ache. My hair was unwashed. My shirt had spit up stains I had stopped caring about. But I was determined to make this Christmas perfect. Our first Christmas as a family of 4. Our golden retriever Biscuit lay by the fireplace, wearing the reindeer antlers I had wrestled onto his head an hour ago. He looked absolutely miserable about it, but he was a good boy and tolerated my holiday enthusiasm. The house smelled like cinnamon and pine. The ham was in the oven, staying warm with that brown sugar glaze Andrew loved. I had spent 4 hours making it from scratch while the twins napped in shifts. Everything was perfect. Everything was a lie. My phone buzzed, a text from my husband. Client emergency. Back by midnight. Love you. I remember staring at those words. Client emergency. Client. On Christmas Eve. At 6 o'clock in the evening. What kind of emergency could not wait until December 26th? I should have known right then. Looking back, I should have noticed the pattern that had been forming for over a year. Every emergency happened on dates that meant something. Our anniversary, my birthday, the day I told him I was pregnant, and now Christmas Eve. Cheaters do not just cheat, they steal your special moments too. They take the days that should belong to your family and give them to someone else. They leave you alone on the nights that matter most, wondering what you did wrong, wondering why you are not enough. But I did not know that yet. I was still the trusting wife, still the woman who believed her husband when he said he would be home by midnight. I tried to take a family photo for our Christmas card. Just me, the twins, Biscuit, and the tree. It should have been simple. It was chaos. Noah started screaming the moment I propped up my phone. Liam joined in sympathy. Biscuit decided this was the perfect moment to knock over the tripod with his tail. I caught my phone just before it hit the floor, nearly dropping Noah in the process. I should have laughed. I think I did laugh, actually. That hollow laugh of a new mother running on 3 hours of sleep and the desperate hope that her husband would walk through the door and help. I kept trying for 20 minutes. 20 minutes of adjusting babies and repositioning them on and forcing smiles that did not reach my eyes. In every photo, I looked exhausted, defeated, alone. But Andrew was not coming home to help. By 9 o'clock, I had tried calling him 4 times, straight to voicemail every time. I texted him at 9:47, hope the meeting goes well. We will be here. The message showed as delivered, not read. Something felt different that night. Not the usual worry when Andrew worked late, not the normal loneliness that came with new motherhood. This was something colder, something that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I finally got both twins to sleep around 10:30. I stood at the nursery window, looking out at our neighborhood. The Hendersons across the street had their whole roof covered in lights. The young couple next door had an inflatable Santa that waved mechanically at passing cars. Every house on our street glowed with warmth and family. Every driveway had cars parked in it. Fathers were home. Husbands were home. Everyone was where they belonged on Christmas Eve. Everyone except Andrew. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through our text history. His last message before tonight was from 2 days ago. Pick up more diapers on your way home. Not I love you. Not cannot wait to celebrate our first Christmas as a family of four. Not you are doing an amazing job with the twins, and I am so proud of you. Just diapers. I set the phone face down on the dresser and told myself I was being paranoid. Hormones, sleep deprivation, the normal anxiety of a new mother whose husband worked too much. But something made me pick up the phone again. Something made me open the Find My Phone app. The one I had set up on Andrew's phone months ago when he kept losing it. His location appeared on the screen. Not at the office downtown, not stuck in traffic on the highway. He was 45 miles away at a place called Cedar Ridge Cabin Resort. I stared at the little blue dot for a long time. My hands started shaking. My heart started pounding. Cedar Ridge Cabin Resort. I had never heard of it, but I knew exactly what kind of place it was. I called my mother. Eleanor Mills answered on the second ring despite the late hour. She had been a family court judge for 30 years before retiring. She had seen every kind of betrayal, every kind of lie, every kind of marriage falling apart. She knew the sound of trouble before anyone spoke a word. Rachel. Her voice was calm but alert. What is wrong? I do not know, I said. Probably nothing. Can you come watch the twins for a few hours? She did not ask why. She did not tell me I was overreacting. She did not say the words that well-meaning friends always say. I am sure there is a reasonable explanation. She just said she would be there in 20 minutes. I should have stayed home. I should have waited for Andrew to come back with whatever excuse he had prepared. I should have believed the lie one more time. But something in me had already snapped. Something in me knew that if I did not see the truth with my own eyes, I would spend the rest of my life wondering. And I was done wondering. I was done being the wife who trusted blindly while her husband disappeared. My mother arrived at 11:15. I kissed the twins goodbye, breathing in their sweet baby smell, not knowing that my life was about to change forever. I told myself I was being ridiculous. I told myself I would drive out there, see that it was some kind of work retreat, and drive home embarrassed but relieved. I was not relieved. The drive took 47 minutes. I remember every mile of it. The Christmas songs on the radio felt mocking. All those lyrics about coming home, about being with the ones you love, about families gathered around the fire. Meanwhile, my husband was at a cabin resort on Christmas Eve while I had been alone with our infant sons, while I had been making his favorite ham, while I had been waiting for him to walk through the door and be a father. Cedar Ridge Cabin Resort was small and secluded, nestled in the mountains, the kind of place couples went for romantic getaways, the kind of place you took someone when you did not want to be seen. I found Andrew's car in the gravel lot outside Cabin 7. There was another car parked beside it, a silver sedan I did not recognize. I turned off my headlights and sat in the darkness, watching the cabin. Through the window, I could see the glow of a fireplace. I could see movement, shadows of two people. Part of me wanted to drive away. Part of me wanted to pretend I had never seen this. Part of me wanted to go home and climb into bed and convince myself this was all a bad dream. But I had not driven 47 minutes on Christmas Eve to turn around now. I got out of my car. The December air hit my face like a slap. The gravel crunched under my boots as I approached the cabin. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. And then I saw them. Andrew and a woman I had never seen before, sitting on a couch in front of the fireplace, champagne glasses in their hands. She was wearing a red sweater that looked new and expensive. He was wearing the blue shirt I had bought him for his birthday, the shirt I had picked out carefully because I thought the color matched his eyes. They were laughing about something, happy, relaxed. The way Andrew used to look when we first started dating. The way he had not looked at home in months. The way he never looked at me anymore. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was when the woman stood up to refill their glasses. When she turned sideways toward the window and I saw the unmistakable curve of her belly. She was pregnant, at least 5 months pregnant. My husband had been having an affair with a pregnant woman. Or rather, my husband had gotten another woman pregnant while I was home nursing his newborn twins. While I was waking up every 2 hours to feed his sons. While I was destroying my body to keep his children alive. He had been creating a new family, a replacement family, one that did not include me. My first instinct was to burst through that door screaming, to confront them both, to make him explain how he could do this to me, to us, to our sons. But my mother's voice echoed in my head. The advice she had given me 1,000 times during my years as a corporate attorney before I gave up my career for this man. Emotion is expensive, Rachel. Strategy is free. So instead of screaming, I pulled out my phone. I took photos. I took videos. I documented everything I was seeing through that window. The champagne, the fireplace, the way he touched her belly like he was feeling his child kick, the way he had never touched my belly like that. Not once during my entire pregnancy. And then I drove home. I did not cry the whole way back. I did not scream. I just drove, watching the mile markers pass, feeling something cold and hard settle into my chest where my heart used to be. The woman I had been that morning was dead. The trusting wife, the grateful mother, the woman who believed her husband loved her. She died on that gravel driveway, looking through a cabin window at her husband and his pregnant mistress. By the time I got home, I knew exactly what I had to do. My mother was asleep on the couch when I walked in. She woke immediately, taking one look at my face before nodding slowly. I was right to be worried, she said. It was not a question. I sat down across from her and told her everything. The cabin, the woman, the pregnancy, the way Andrew had laughed with her, touched her, looked at her like she was the only person in the world, the way he used to look at me. My mother listened without interrupting, her expression growing stonier with every word. She had seen hundreds of marriages fall apart during her years on the bench. She had heard every excuse, every lie, every justification. But this was her daughter. This was her grandchildren's father. When I finished, she asked only one question. What are you going to do? I did not have an answer yet, but I knew I could not confront Andrew tonight. Not while I was emotional, not while he had the upper hand. I knew I needed more information before I made any moves. You should search his office, my mother said. If there is one secret, there are usually more. Men like Andrew do not have just one lie. They have systems of lies. Find the system. She stayed with the twins while I went upstairs to Andrew's home office, the room he always kept locked because of sensitive work documents, the room I had never questioned because I trusted my husband. Trust. What a dangerous word. I had trusted Andrew with my heart, my future, my children, my entire life. And he had been lying to me every single day. The lock was easy to pick. I had learned how during a white-collar crime case years ago. Funny how skills come back when you need them. Andrew's office was meticulously organized. Filing cabinets labeled by year and category. A laptop I knew the password to because I had watched him type it 100 times. A safe in the closet that I had never been able to open. I started with the filing cabinets. The first drawer contained tax documents. Nothing unusual. The second drawer had investment statements. I photographed each page, not sure what I was looking for, but knowing I might need it later. The third drawer made my blood run cold. Insurance documents. A life insurance policy taken out 6 months ago. The beneficiary was Andrew Miller. The insured was me. The payout was $3 million. I read that number 3 times. $3 million. My husband had taken out a $3 million life insurance policy on me without my knowledge. 6 months ago. Right around the time my pregnancy started having complications. Right around the time I fell down the stairs and nearly miscarried. I had always wondered about that fall. I could not remember tripping. I could not remember losing my balance. One moment I was at the top of the stairs, carrying a basket of laundry. The next moment I was at the bottom, bleeding and terrified that I had lost my babies. Andrew had been home that day. He had been standing in the hallway. He had called the ambulance. He had held my hand at the hospital and cried when the doctor said the twins would be okay. Had those been real tears? Or had he been crying because his plan had failed? Had he pushed me? I sat on the floor of his office, staring at the insurance policy, and felt the last pieces of my old self shatter like glass. $3 million. That was what my life was worth to him. That was the number he had put on my death. That was when I stopped being sad. That was when I got scared. And then I got angry. I kept searching. Behind the filing cabinet, I found a burner phone. The kind you buy with cash at a convenience store. The kind you use when you do not want anyone to trace your calls. The kind cheaters use when they have something to hide. The text messages went back 14 months. To a woman named Tori, I love you. I cannot wait until we can be together. She is so boring now. All she talks about is the babies. I hate coming home to her. She has gotten so fat and tired. You are the only thing that makes my life bearable. 14 months. He had been cheating on me for over a year. He had started the affair before I even got pregnant, before we had even talked about having children. Every moment of my pregnancy, every doctor's appointment, every late night feeding these past 3 months, he had been texting this woman, telling her he loved her, telling her I was boring and fat and tired. While I was growing his children inside my body, he was calling me boring. The most recent message was from earlier that evening. On my way. Left the wife with the crying machines. Tonight is about us. Cannot wait to feel our baby kick. Crying machines. That was what he called our sons. Noah and Liam. The babies I had carried for 9 months. The babies I had nearly died delivering. The babies I loved more than my own life. Crying machines. I photographed every text message, every call log, every piece of evidence on that phone. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the camera steady. But I did not stop. I could not stop. Then I kept searching. The safe was harder. But Andrew was not as clever as he thought he was. The combination was his college jersey number, his birthday month, and the last 4 digits of his social security number. I had it open in 3 tries. Inside, I found bank statements for an account I had never seen before, an account in the Cayman Islands with a balance of $2.3 million. 2 years of deposits, all transferred from shell companies with names I did not recognize. My husband had been hiding money offshore, millions of dollars that should have been part of our marital assets, money that I had no idea existed, while I clipped coupons for groceries, while I bought diapers on sale. While I worried about whether we could afford to hire a babysitter so I could get a few hours of sleep, he had $2.3 million hidden in a secret account. I photographed everything. Then I carefully returned each item to its exact location. Andrew was observant. He would notice if anything was out of place. Downstairs, my mother was making coffee. She looked at my face and her expression hardened. "How bad is it?" she asked. I showed her the insurance policy, the bank statements, the text messages. I showed her the words he had used to describe me. Boring, fat, tired. I showed her what our sons were worth to their father. Crying machines. My mother was silent for a long moment. Then she said something I will never forget. "You need to leave tonight, Rachel, before he comes home. Pack what you can and get out of this house. That insurance policy terrifies me. A man who takes out $3 million on his wife's life is not planning a future with her. He is planning a future without her." "I cannot," I said. "If I run now without a plan, he will destroy me in court. You know how these things work, Mom. You spent 30 years on the bench. The spouse who leaves looks guilty. The spouse who leaves without documentation loses everything. Then we build your case first," she said. "We document everything. And when you do leave, you leave with enough ammunition to win. But Rachel," she gripped my hands hard, "we do this fast. That man is dangerous. I can feel it." We spent the next 2 hours copying documents. I uploaded everything to a cloud drive that Andrew did not know about. I took photos of every financial statement, every suspicious receipt, every piece of evidence I could find. By 4 in the morning, I had enough to prove Andrew was hiding assets, enough to prove he was having an affair, enough to make any divorce attorney salivate. But I did not have enough time. At 5:30, I heard Andrew's car in the driveway. My mother had left an hour earlier. taking Biscuit with her so the dog would not alert Andrew to anything unusual. The twins were asleep in the nursery. I was standing in the garage with 2 packed suitcases and a diaper bag. I had almost made it. 10 more minutes and I would have been gone. The garage door opened and Andrew walked in, still wearing the clothes he had worn to the cabin. He still smelled like her perfume, something floral and expensive. Nothing like the drugstore lotion I had been using since the twins were born. He froze when he saw me. Rachel. His voice was calm, too calm. What are you doing? I am leaving, Andrew. I know about Tori. I know about the baby. I know about all of it. Something shifted in his face. The mask he had been wearing for our entire marriage slipped, and for the first time I saw who my husband really was. Not the charming man who had swept me off my feet. Not the loving husband who had cried at our wedding. Not the excited father who had kissed my belly when we found out we were having twins. A stranger. A predator. Someone who had been hunting me all along. Put the bags back inside, he said. You are not going anywhere. You cannot stop me. I can. I will. His voice was cold now, almost curious, like a scientist examining a specimen, like he was wondering how I had figured it out. You have no money, Rachel. No friends because I made sure of that. And if you try to take my sons, I will destroy you in court. They are our sons, I said, and I have documentation of everything, the offshore accounts, the affair, the insurance policy you took out on my life. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes, surprise maybe, or calculation, the wheels turning as he figured out his next move. Then he smiled, that charming smile that had made me fall in love with him 8 years ago. The smile I now recognized as the mask of a monster. That insurance policy was for our family's protection, he said smoothly, and whatever documents you think you have, I guarantee you my lawyers can explain away. You know what I have, Rachel. 14 months of documented concern about your mental state, conversations with your doctors about your postpartum depression, worried texts to friends about your erratic behavior. I stared at him. What are you talking about? I have been building a case, he said, in case you ever tried something like this. Every time you cried for no reason, every time you snapped at me because you were tired, every time you forgot something or lost your keys or seemed overwhelmed, I documented it all, screenshots, emails, witnesses who will swear you are unstable. My blood went cold. He had been planning this, not for weeks, for months, maybe longer. Every tear I cried, every moment of exhaustion, every struggle of new motherhood, he had turned into a weapon against me. So here is what is going to happen, Andrew continued. You are going to put those bags back in the house. You are going to go upstairs and get some sleep. And tomorrow morning, we are going to have a lovely Christmas with our sons. And we are never going to speak of this again. And if I do not, then I call my lawyer right now. I file for emergency custody based on your mental instability. I tell the judge you tried to kidnap our children in the middle of the night, and you spend the next 5 years fighting for the right to see them at all. I looked at my husband, at the man I had loved, at the father of my children, and I understood finally that I had never known him at all. I had married a stranger. I'd given my life to a man who saw me as nothing more than an obstacle between him and what he wanted. Slowly, I picked up the suitcases. Slowly, I carried them back inside. Andrew smiled and patted my shoulder as I passed him. His touch made my skin crawl. Merry Christmas, Rachel, he said. Now get some rest. The twins will be up in a few hours. I walked upstairs and put the bags away. I checked on Noah and Liam, both sleeping peacefully in their cribs. They had no idea what kind of monster their father was. They had no idea that their mother had just lost the first battle of a war. But wars are not won in a single night. Wars are won by the person who refuses to give up. And I was just getting started. 6 weeks. That is how long I played the perfect wife while building my case. 6 weeks of smiling at Andrew over breakfast while imagining his face when he finally realized I had outsmarted him. 6 weeks of pretending I did not know about Tori. 6 weeks of kissing him goodnight while my skin crawled. 6 weeks of documenting every single thing he said and did. If you are in a marriage right now where you have to pretend, where you have to perform, where you have to hide who you really are just to survive, I need you to hear something. That is not love. That is captivity. and you deserve to be free. Colorado is a one-party consent state, which means I could legally record our conversations without his knowledge. I bought a small digital recorder and carried it with me everywhere. In my bra, in my pocket, in the diaper bag, anywhere Andrew would not think to look. I captured 47 conversations over those 6 weeks. 47 pieces of evidence showing exactly who Andrew Miller really was. Him calling our sons crying machines. Him complaining about how fat I had gotten. Him telling his brother that marriage was just a business arrangement and wives were replaceable. Him laughing about how easy it was to fool me. 47 recordings. 47 nails in his coffin. I also reconnected with my mother. Carefully. Secretly. We met at her house twice a week while Andrew was at work. I told him I was taking the twins to a mommy and me class. He never bothered to check. That is the thing about narcissists. They are so convinced of their own superiority that they never imagine you might be smarter than them. Andrew thought I was just a tired housewife with postpartum depression. He had no idea I was a former corporate attorney with a photographic memory and a burning desire for revenge. My mother helped me organize the evidence. She helped me plan. She helped me remember who I used to be before I let Andrew shrink me down to nothing. And she brought in Marcus Bennett. Marcus had been my classmate at law school 15 years ago. We had studied together, competed for the same clerkships, argued about case law over cheap pizza at 2 in the morning. He had asked me out once, junior year. I had said no because I was focused on my career. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if I had said yes. Now Marcus was one of the best family law attorneys in Colorado, and he was very interested in my case. Rachel, he said during our first meeting. His office was warm and cluttered with files, photos of past clients on the wall, thank you cards from women he had helped escape marriages like mine. You have enough here for a straightforward divorce. But the offshore accounts are going to be tricky. We need a forensic accountant to trace that money. I know, I said. I also need you to look at something else. I showed him the life insurance policy. I told him about my fall down the stairs. I watched his expression change from professional interest to genuine alarm. He leaned back in his chair, pressing his fingers together. This is concerning, he said carefully. Very concerning. Rachel, have you reported this to the police? And tell them what? That I think my husband might have pushed me. I have no proof. I do not even have a clear memory of what happened. Just a feeling. Just a suspicion that the father of my children tried to kill me for $3 million. Marcus nodded slowly. Then we build the case first. Document everything. And when we file big. Divorce, emergency custody, asset freeze, everything at once. We do not give him time to react. We hit him so hard and so fast that he does not know what happened until it is over. We spent the next month preparing. I copied every document Andrew had in his office. I recorded every conversation. I photographed every receipt, every bank statement, every suspicious piece of paper. I also did something Andrew did not expect. I found his burner phone again while he was in the shower, and I looked up Tori. Her full name was Victoria Ashford. She was 29 years old, a junior associate at Andrew's firm who specialized in corporate mergers. Blonde hair, perfect teeth, the kind of woman who had never had to work for anything in her life. And according to public records, she was already married when she started the affair with my husband. Her husband's name was Robert Ashford. I found him on social media, a quiet-looking man in his early 30s who posted pictures of his garden and his book collection. A man who clearly loved his wife. A man who had no idea his wife was 5 months pregnant with another man's child. I saved that information for later. Robert Ashford might become a very useful ally. Nothing bonds people together like being betrayed by the same person. The day we filed was February 14th, Valentine's Day. Marcus thought it was poetic. I thought it was tactical. Andrew would never expect to be served on a day meant for romance. He would be too busy planning whatever lie he was going to tell me about working late while he spent the evening with Tori. The process server was a tiny 60-year-old woman named Dottie who had been serving papers in Denver for 35 years. White hair, reading glasses, looked like she should be baking cookies for her grandchildren. I specifically requested her because Andrew would never see her coming. She walked into his trading floor at noon, dressed like someone's grandmother visiting for lunch. She asked Andrew to sign for a package. He barely looked at her. He was already reaching for the pen, and when he grabbed the envelope, she handed him the papers. Andrew James Miller, she announced loudly enough for the entire floor to hear. All 50 of his colleagues, all his assistants, all the junior traders who had always looked up to him. You have been served. Happy Valentine's Day, honey. I was not there to see it, but Marcus got a full report from a contact at the firm. Andrew's face went white. His hands started shaking. His colleagues stared. His assistant immediately started whispering to the woman at the next desk. Someone laughed. Then someone else. Then half the floor was pretending to work while actually watching Andrew Miller have the worst moment of his professional life. Within an hour, the rumor had spread through the entire company. Andrew Miller was getting divorced. And based on the thickness of those papers, it was going to be ugly. I moved into my mother's house that afternoon with both twins and Biscuit. I had a temporary restraining order in my pocket and hope in my heart for the first time in months. I thought I had won. I thought I was safe. I thought the worst was over. I was so wrong. 3 days later, the police arrived at my mother's front door. I was feeding Liam when they knocked. He was just starting to smile, that gummy baby smile that makes everything else in the world disappear. I was looking at my son's face, thinking about how much I loved him, when my mother answered the door. And I heard the words that changed everything. Rachel Miller, you are under arrest for embezzlement and fraud. The bottle fell from my hand. Liam started crying. 2 officers walked into my mother's living room and told me to stand up and put my hands behind my back. They handcuffed me in front of my screaming children. They walked me to a police car while my mother held the twins and tried to stay calm. The neighbors watched through their windows. Mrs. Patterson from across the street was recording on her phone. I saw her face as they put me in the back of that car. Shocked, delighted, already composing the text she would send to everyone we knew. I spent 48 hours in jail before my mother could post bail. 48 hours in a cell with a metal toilet and a thin mattress and nothing but time to think about how Andrew had destroyed me. 48 hours wondering if I would ever hold my babies again. When I finally got out, Marcus was waiting with my mother. His face told me everything I needed to know before he said a word. He filed a criminal complaint, Marcus said, claims you stole money from joint accounts and forged documents to access his private files. He produced evidence, bank records, security footage, even a witness who claims they saw you breaking into his office. That witness is lying, I said. That evidence is fabricated. He manufactured all of it. I know, Marcus said, but the DA does not know that yet. And while they investigate, Andrew is using this to destroy you in family court. The custody hearing was scheduled for the following week. I walked into that courtroom believing the judge would see the truth, believing that justice would prevail, believing that no one could look at me, at my babies, and think I was the villain. I was wrong. Andrew arrived with a team of lawyers from Patterson and Whitfield, the most expensive firm in Denver. 3 attorneys in tailored suits, a paralegal carrying boxes of documents, a strategy that had probably cost more than I would earn in 5 years. I had Marcus, just Marcus, sitting beside me in his slightly wrinkled jacket with coffee stains on his tie. The judge was someone new, someone my mother did not know. Judge Franklin Hayes, a man in his 60s with cold ways and a reputation for being skeptical of mothers. Andrew's lawyers painted a picture of me as unstable, desperate, dangerous. A woman so consumed by jealousy that she had made up wild accusations about affairs and hidden money. They presented my postpartum depression diagnosis as evidence of mental illness. They presented the pending criminal charges as proof of my dishonesty. They made me sound like a monster. And then Tori took the stand. Victoria Ashford sat in that witness box looking innocent and vulnerable, dressed in soft pastels, hands folded protectively over her pregnant belly, voice trembling just enough to seem genuine. She told the judge I had threatened her. She showed photographs of bruises on her arms, bruises I knew she had given herself and documented at an emergency room. Mrs. Miller approached me outside my workplace, Tori said, her voice shaking perfectly. She was yelling, screaming actually. She told me she would destroy me if I did not stay away from her husband. She grabbed my arms and shook me. I was terrified for my safety and the safety of my unborn child. I wanted to scream. I wanted to leap across the courtroom and show everyone who this woman really was. I wanted to grab her by her lying throat and shake the truth out of her. But Marcus put his hand on my arm and whispered one word. Wait. Judge Hayes looked at the evidence. He looked at me. He looked at my babies, who were being held by a court-appointed guardian in the back of the room. Noah was crying, Liam was reaching for me, and I could not go to them, I could not hold them, I could not even comfort them. Given the pending criminal charges and concerns about Mrs. Miller's mental state, Judge Hayes said, his voice flat and final, temporary custody is awarded to the father. The world went gray around the edges. My knees buckled. Marcus caught me before I hit the floor. I watched them take my sons away. I watched Andrew smile at me as he walked out of that courtroom with everything I loved. He did not even look back. And I understood finally what I was really fighting. Not a divorce, not a custody battle, a war against a man who had spent years building weapons to use against me, against a system that believed money and lies over truth and love. A war I was losing. Here is what no one tells you about family court. Truth does not automatically win. The person with better documentation, better lawyers, better performance wins. If you are ever in this fight, prepare like your life depends on it, because it does. The weeks after I lost custody were the darkest of my life. I want to be honest with you about this part, because I think there are women listening right now who are in their own dark place, who think they cannot survive, who think maybe it would be easier to give up. I thought all of those things. I thought them every single day. And I need you to know that darkness is not permanent. It is just a tunnel. And if you keep walking, you will find the light. But first, I had to walk through hell. First, I lost my apartment. Andrew's lawyers froze all our joint accounts, every penny I thought I had access to. I could not pay rent. I could not pay utilities. I could not even buy groceries. The landlord was sympathetic, but firm. I have a mortgage too, she said. I have 30 days to get out. 30 days. That was all the time I had to find a new place to live with no money, and pending criminal charges that made every rental application an automatic rejection. Then I lost my car. I was behind on payments I had not even known I was responsible for. Andrew had been making them from an account I could not access. The car was in both our names, but the loan was in mine alone. When he stopped paying, the repo company came for my Honda at 6 in the morning. I heard the truck before I saw it. That beeping sound of a tow truck backing up. I ran outside in my pajamas, barefoot, hair tangled from sleep. You cannot take my car, I said. Please, I need it. I have children. The driver shrugged. He had heard this before, 100 times probably. Take it up with your bank, he said. I am just doing my job. I stood on the sidewalk and watched them tow away my only transportation. It was raining. Of course it was raining, because the universe apparently thought I had not suffered enough. My mother gave me her old car, a 15-year-old Buick that smelled like mothballs and made a concerning noise whenever I turned left. But it ran, and beggars cannot be choosers. But the worst moment came 3 days later. I was sitting in my mother's living room, surrounded by legal documents and empty coffee cups, trying to figure out how to fight a custody battle with no money, no car, and pending criminal charges. The mailman knocked on the door with a certified letter. I thought maybe it was something from the court, maybe news about my case, maybe something that would finally go my way. Inside the envelope were photographs, my twins, Noah and Liam, wearing matching outfits I had never seen before. Little sailor suits with anchors on the front. Outfits I had not bought. Outfits someone else had dressed them in. And they were being held by Tori. She was smiling at the camera, glowing, one hand on her pregnant belly, the other arm wrapped around my sons like they belonged to her, like she was their mother, like I had never existed. The note said only 7 words. They are calling me mommy now. I do not remember screaming, but my mother told me later that the neighbors heard. 3 houses away, they heard me. She found me on the kitchen floor, clutching those photographs, completely shattered. I could not breathe. I could not think. I could not do anything except lie there and wonder if this was what dying felt like. My babies were calling another woman mommy. My babies did not know who I was anymore. My babies had been stolen from me by a woman who had helped destroy my life. That night, after my mother had forced me to eat something and take a shower and act like a functioning human being, I made a decision. I could lie down and let Andrew destroy me. I could accept defeat. I could spend the rest of my life as a broken woman who lost everything. Or I could fight. I chose to fight. My mother sat across from me at her kitchen table, the same table where I had eaten breakfast as a child, the same table where she had helped me with homework and taught me to play cards and told me I could be anything I wanted to be. "What are you going to do, Bean?" she asked. "I am going to remember who I was before I let him make me small," I said. "I used to be a lawyer, Mom. A good one. I graduated top of my class. I won cases that everyone said were unwinnable. And Andrew forgot something important. What is that? He forgot that angry women built this country. And I am very, very angry." The next morning, I made 3 phone calls. The first was to a forensic accountant named William Harrison. He specialized in tracing hidden assets through shell companies and offshore accounts. The kind of money Andrew was hiding. His fee was steep, $20,000 just to start the investigation. My mother wrote the check without hesitation. She said it was an investment in her grandchildren's future. She said it was the best money she would ever spend. The second call was to a private investigator named Jack Callahan, former FBI, 20 years of experience tracking down people who did not want to be found. Now he specialized in complex divorce cases. I asked him to find everything he could about Victoria Ashford, every secret, every lie, every skeleton in every closet. The third call was the most important and the hardest. Linda Miller answered on the 4th ring. My mother-in-law, the woman who had raised Andrew, the woman who had always been cold to me at family gatherings, the woman who had never thought I was good enough for her precious son. "Linda," I said, "I need to tell you something about your son." There was a long pause. Then she said something that surprised me. "I have been expecting this call." I told her everything. The affair, the hidden money, the insurance policy, the way Andrew had systematically destroyed my life to keep his secret safe. I told her about Tori and the baby. I told her about the photographs of my twins calling another woman mommy. When I finished, there was silence on the line. I thought maybe she had hung up. Maybe she had decided to defend her son after all. Then Linda said something that changed everything. "I believe you," she said. Her voice was shaking. "I have known for years that Andrew was not the man he pretended to be. I saw signs when he was a teenager. The lying, the manipulation, the way he could charm anyone into anything. I just did not want to admit it. I thought maybe marriage and children would change him." I found myself crying. Actual tears. The first real tears had cried since Christmas Eve. "I need your help," I said. "I need someone on the inside. Someone who can tell me what Andrew is planning." "I will do better than that," Linda said. "I found something in my own accounts last month. Transfers I did not authorize. Large sums of money moving to accounts I have never heard of. I think Andrew has been stealing from me for years. His own mother. And if I am right, I will testify against him in court." The next 3 months were the hardest work of my life. William Harrison traced Andrew's money through 17 shell companies across 4 countries: the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, Singapore, the Bahamas. Every time we thought we had found everything, there was another layer, another account, another hidden fortune. The total he had hidden was not 2.3 million, it was nearly $4 million. Money he had stolen from clients at his firm, money he had embezzled from company accounts, and yes, money he had drained from his own mother's retirement fund. Jack Callahan discovered that Tori had been married when she started the affair with Andrew. Her husband Robert was a software engineer who had believed every lie she told him. They had been trying to have children for 3 years. Robert had no idea his wife was already pregnant by another man. When Jack approached him, Robert was devastated. Then he was furious. Then he was ready to help. "She told me they were just work friends," Robert said bitterly. "I believed her for 2 years. I trusted her completely. Now I am looking at raising another man's baby or walking away from my marriage. So yes, I will testify to whatever you need. I will tell the world who Victoria Ashford really is." Detective Sarah Webb took an interest in the case when I brought her the life insurance policy. She was a 15-year veteran of the Financial Crimes Division. Tough, smart, a woman who had seen every kind of evil that men could do. This pattern, she said, studying the documents. Taking out a large policy, and then the spouse has an accident. We see it more often than people think. Husbands who decide their wives are worth more dead than alive. I cannot promise anything, but I am going to dig. And if your husband tried to kill you, I will find the evidence. The criminal charges against me were dropped in April. District Attorney Morrison reviewed the evidence and realized Andrew had fabricated everything. The bank records had been altered by someone with access to the system. The security footage was from a different date, edited to look current. The witness changed his story completely when faced with perjury charges. Rachel, Marcus said, calling me with the news. I could hear him smiling through the phone. You are free, the charges are dismissed, and you are getting your children back. I got temporary custody 3 days later. A different judge, a different courtroom, a different outcome. Noah and Liam were returned to me at my mother's house. They were bigger than I remembered. They had learned to sit up on their own. They could hold their bottles now. They had grown so much in 3 months. 3 months of their lives I would never get back. 3 months stolen by their father and his mistress. But they were home. I held them for an hour straight, both of them, one in each arm, crying into their hair, breathing in their baby smell, telling them over and over again that mommy was here, that mommy would never leave again, that mommy loved them more than anything in the entire world. Biscuit was so excited he knocked over a lamp, then a chair, then the Christmas tree that my mother had never taken down because she said she was waiting for me to come home. That night I slept peacefully for the first time since Christmas Eve. My babies were in the room next to mine. Biscuit was at the foot of my bed. The house was quiet and safe and warm. The criminal charges were gone. Andrew was facing a federal investigation. Everything was finally going my way. I thought I had won. I thought the nightmare was over. I was wrong, so terribly, horribly wrong, because Andrew Miller was not finished with me yet. And what came next would make everything before look like a warm-up. The morning of the final custody hearing, I woke up to silence. That should have been my first warning. The twins never slept past 6. Noah was always the first to cry, and Liam would join him within minutes. Their morning chorus had become the soundtrack of my life, and Biscuit always greeted me the moment I opened my eyes, wet nose against my cheek, tail wagging, ready for breakfast. But the house was quiet, too quiet, the kind of quiet that makes your skin crawl, the kind of quiet that screams something is wrong. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself they were just sleeping late for once. I told myself everything was fine. But my body knew before my brain did. My heart was already pounding as I walked down the hallway. My hands were already shaking as I reached for the doorknob. I walked to the twins' room. The door was open. The cribs were empty. Not just empty. The blankets were gone. The diaper bag was gone. The stuffed animals were gone. Noah's elephant, Liam's giraffe, the mobile that played Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Everything was gone. I ran through the house calling their names. Noah, Liam, boys, where are you? Mommy is here. Please answer me. Nothing, just silence. Just my own voice echoing off the walls. Biscuit was whimpering at the back door. His whole body was shaking. He knew something was wrong too. The door had been left open. The lock had been picked. Someone had come in during the night while I slept. Someone had walked right past my bedroom. Someone had taken my children, and I had not heard a thing. That thought haunted me more than anything. I was their mother. I was supposed to protect them, and someone had stolen them from their beds while I slept 20 feet away. And then I saw the note on the kitchen counter. White paper, black ink, neat handwriting that I recognized from birthday cards and office memos. You took everything from me. Now I am taking everything from you. Try to find them. The note was signed with a single letter, T. Torrey. The world tilted sideways. I grabbed the counter to keep from falling. My vision went dark around the edges. I could not breathe. I could not think. I could not do anything except stare at that letter. T, the woman who had stolen my husband, the woman who had lied in court, the woman who had sent me photographs of my children, calling her mommy. She had taken them. She had actually taken them. I called 911. My voice did not sound like my own. Someone took my children. Please help me. Someone took my babies. I called Marcus. I called my mother. I called Detective Webb. Within an hour, there was an Amber Alert across 3 states. Noah and Liam Miller, 11 months old. Last seen wearing blue pajamas with stars. Believed to be with Victoria Ashford, 29, blonde hair, 5 months pregnant. If you see this woman, do not approach. Call 911 immediately. Andrew showed up at my mother's house, looking as shocked as I was. His face was white. His hands were shaking. For once in his life, I believed his reaction was genuine. I did not know she was going to do this, he said. You have to believe me. I had no idea she was planning this. I looked at the man who had destroyed my life, the man who had created this monster, the man whose affair had led directly to this moment. I do not care what you knew, I said. My voice was steady even though I was dying inside. If anything happens to my children, I will kill you. That is not a threat, Andrew. That is a promise, and I will make it look like an accident, just like you tried to do to me. He flinched. Good. The next 24 hours were the longest of my life. FBI agent Thomas Garrett took the case. Tori had switched cars twice. She had disabled her phone. She was heading south, probably toward Mexico, using back roads to avoid detection. She had been planning this for weeks, maybe months. While I was rebuilding my life, she was planning to destroy it forever. Every hour that passed felt like a year. I could not eat. The thought of food made me sick. I could not sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their empty cribs. I just sat in the police station, waiting for news, hoping, praying, bargaining with any God who would listen. Please, I will do anything. Just bring them back. Please bring my babies back. My mother sat beside me, holding my hand. Marcus brought coffee, no one drank. Detective Webb coordinated with police departments across 4 states. Andrew paced in a corner, making calls to anyone he could think of who might know where Tori would go. What if they are gone, I whispered to my mother at 3 in the morning. What if I never see them again? What if she hurts them? What if they are scared and crying and wondering where their mommy is? Do not think like that, she said. We will find them. But I saw the fear in her eyes, the same fear that was consuming me, the fear that every mother knows, the fear that lives in the back of your mind from the moment they place that baby in your arms, the fear that you might lose them. I should have stayed, I said. I should have just accepted what Andrew did. If I had not fought back, Tori would not have felt threatened. She would not have taken them. This is my fault. My mother grabbed my shoulders and forced me to look at her. Her eyes were fierce, her grip was iron. Listen to me, Rachel. Listen carefully. You left to protect those boys. You fought to give them a better life. Tori did this because she is unstable and desperate. Andrew created her. His lies created her. His manipulation created her. This is not your fault. Do you understand me? This is not your fault. I wanted to believe her. I really did. At 4:17 in the morning, Detective Webb's phone rang. The whole room went silent. Everyone stopped breathing. Everyone turned to look at her. She answered, listened. Her face was completely unreadable. I was holding my mother's hand so tight I could feel her bones grinding together. But she did not pull away. She just held on. They found them, Detective Webb said. I could not breathe. My heart stopped. The whole world stopped. Are they? They are fine, Detective Webb continued. And for the first time since I had met her, I saw her smile. Tori got pulled over outside Albuquerque, broken taillight. Officer Randy Martinez recognized the Amber Alert. He kept her calm, kept her distracted, until backup arrived. The boys are safe. They are unharmed. They are apparently teaching Officer Martinez how to say cookie in baby talk. I collapsed. My legs just gave out. Marcus caught me before I hit the floor. My mother was crying, sobbing, saying thank you to a God she had not believed in for 30 years. Even Andrew looked like he might pass out from relief. Whatever he had done, whatever monster he was still their father. Some part of him still cared if they lived or died. They are coming home, Detective Webb said. Rachel, your babies are coming home. I cried harder than I have ever cried in my life. Tears of relief, tears of Tears of gratitude for a broken taillight and an observant police officer, and whatever miracle had led him to pull over that car at that moment on that road. My babies were coming home. 6 weeks later, I walked into the Denver family court for the last time. My mother was on my left. Marcus was on my right. I was wearing a navy blue dress that my mother had bought me for this day. She said it made me look professional, credible, like a woman who deserved to win. I had not slept the night before. I had been too nervous, too scared, too aware that everything I had fought for came down to what happened in this room. Judge Patricia Holloway presiding, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes. My mother had worked with her years ago. She said Patricia Holloway was fair, tough, but fair. A woman who had seen every lie and every manipulation and could spot them from a mile away. A woman who did not tolerate games. The courtroom was packed. Every seat was filled. People were standing against the back wall. Word had spread about this case. The affair, the hidden money, the kidnapping. Everyone wanted to see how it ended. Andrew sat at the defense table with his lawyer, a younger man from a cheaper firm now that his assets were frozen. Gone was the team from Patterson and Whitfield. Gone were the 3 attorneys in tailored suits. Now it was just him and a public defender who looked like he would rather be anywhere else. Tori was in custody at the county jail awaiting trial for kidnapping. She had tried to cut a deal, tried to blame everything on Andrew, tried to say he had masterminded the whole thing. No one believed her. Detective Webb sat in the back with FBI agent Garrett. Both of them were here to see this through. Both of them had invested too much to miss the ending. And Linda Miller sat on my side of the courtroom. My mother-in-law, the woman who had raised Andrew, the woman who was about to testify against her own son. She looked at me before the proceedings began. Her eyes were sad but determined. "I am sorry," she mouthed. I nodded. I knew. Marcus had prepared for months for this moment. Every piece of evidence organized. Every recorded conversation transcribed. Every document William Harrison had traced through 17 shell companies. Every lie Andrew had told, documented and ready to be exposed. He called Linda first. "Mrs. Miller," Marcus said, "can you tell the court about your relationship with your son?" Linda looked at Andrew. He stared back at her, his face a mask of betrayal. His own mother, testifying against him. The ultimate betrayal. But then again, he had stolen from her. He had lied to her. He had used her just like he used everyone else. "I taught my son that money was power and feelings were weakness," Linda said quietly. Her voice trembled, but did not break. "I taught him that women should be managed, not respected. I taught him that appearances mattered more than truth. I see now where that led. I see the monster I helped create. And I am here today to help destroy him." She turned to look at me. "Rachel, I am sorry for all of it, for not believing you when you first came to me, for defending him when I should have defended those babies, for being too blind and too proud to see what my son really was. You deserve better. Those boys deserve better." Andrew's lawyer objected, but Judge Holloway overruled him with a sharp glance. She wanted to hear this. The whole courtroom wanted to hear this. Marcus called Detective Webb next. She testified about the insurance policy, about the investigation into my fall down the stairs, about the criminal investigation that was now looking at Andrew for attempted murder. "The evidence is compelling," Detective Webb said. "The timing of the policy, the circumstances of the fall, the pattern of behavior. We believe Mr. Miller intended to kill his wife and collect $3 million in insurance money." Andrew's face went white. His lawyer objected again. Overruled again. Then Marcus called Robert Ashford, Tori's husband, the man she had been married to while carrying Andrew's child. Robert walked to the witness stand looking like a man who had aged 10 years and 10 months. He testified about the affair, about the lies Tori had told him, about finding text messages and hotel receipts, and learning that his wife was 5 months pregnant with another man's baby. "I trusted her completely," Robert said. "I loved her completely. And she was lying to me every single day. She and Andrew deserve each other. They deserve whatever punishment this court gives them." Finally, Marcus called me. I walked to the witness stand on legs that felt like jelly. I sat down. I looked at the courtroom full of people. I looked at Andrew, who would not meet my eyes, and I told my story. All of it, from Christmas Eve to the kidnapping. From the first lie to the last betrayal, every manipulation he had used, every way he had tried to break me, every moment I had spent wondering if I would survive. I did not cry. I did not shake. I just told the truth. And then Marcus played the recordings. 47 conversations, Andrew's own voice filling the courtroom, threatening me, gaslighting me, admitting to hiding money and manipulating our marriage. One recording was particularly damaging. Marcus played it twice. I made sure you have no friends. Andrew's voice was cold and clear. No money, no one who will believe you. If you try to leave, I will take the boys and you will never see them again. I will tell everyone you are crazy. Who do you think they will believe? Me or some unemployed housewife with postpartum depression? The courtroom was silent. Every person in that room was staring at Andrew. Every person in that room now knew exactly who he was. Andrew took the stand last. His lawyer tried to spin everything, to paint him as a victim of circumstances, as a man who had made mistakes but did not deserve to lose everything. But Marcus destroyed him on cross-examination. "Mr. Miller," Marcus said, his voice sharp as a knife, "you stated that the recordings were taken out of context. What context makes this acceptable?" He played the recording again. Andrew had no answer. Just silence. "You stated that the offshore accounts were for tax purposes. Can you explain why you hid $4 million from your wife while she clipped coupons to afford diapers? While she worried about the electric bill? While she wore clothes from the thrift store so your children could have formula?" Andrew was silent. His lawyer was silent. The whole courtroom was silent. "You stated that you loved your children and wanted what was best for them. Can you explain why you created an environment so toxic that your mistress felt the need to kidnap them and flee to Mexico?" Still silent. Andrew just sat there looking at his hands, looking at the ruins of the life he had built on lies. Judge Holloway did not need long to make her decision. She had seen enough. We had all seen enough. "In my 30 years on the bench," she said, her voice ringing through the courtroom, "I have rarely seen such a calculated campaign of abuse disguised as marriage. Mr. Miller, you used every system designed to protect families as a weapon against your own. You used money as a prison. You used children as hostages. You used the law itself as a weapon against the mother of your children." She looked at Andrew, and I saw something I had never seen in a judge's eyes before. Disgust. Pure, undisguised disgust. Full custody is awarded to Mrs. Miller. Permanent and complete. Mr. Miller is ordered to pay $1.8 million in recovered hidden assets, plus child support of $4,500 monthly until the children reach adulthood. All visitation is denied pending the outcome of criminal proceedings. She paused. The courtroom held its breath. "Additionally, I am referring this case to the district attorney for review of additional charges, including financial abuse, witness tampering, filing false police reports, and conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. Mr. Miller, the FBI agents in the back of the courtroom would like a word with you about those offshore accounts." Court is adjourned. Two agents walked forward. Their footsteps echoed in the silent room. Handcuffs clicked around Andrew's wrists. I watched them lead him away. My husband, the father of my children, the man who had tried to destroy me, the man who had failed. He looked back at me once. His eyes were empty, defeated. He had lost everything. His money, his freedom, his family, his reputation. Everything he had tried to take from me, he had lost himself. I did not smile. I did not cry. I did not gloat. I just breathed. For the first time in 18 months, I breathed. The trials took another 6 months. 6 months of courtrooms and testimonies, and watching the people who had tried to destroy me face the consequences of their choices. If you are listening to this and you are still waiting for karma to find the person who hurt you, I need you to hear something. Justice is real. It does not always come quickly. It does not always come the way you expect. But it comes. Andrew's trial was first. I sat in the gallery every single day, not because I had to, because I wanted to. I wanted him to see my face. I wanted him to know that the woman he had tried to break was still standing, still fighting, still winning. The prosecution laid out everything. The offshore accounts, the shell companies, the money he had stolen from clients and colleagues and his own mother. The affair, the lies, the fabricated evidence he had used to have me arrested, and then they talked about the insurance policy. $3 million on my life, taken out 6 months before I fell down the stairs. The fall I could not remember. The fall that had almost killed my babies. The jury saw the evidence, the timing, the pattern. They heard from Detective Webb about similar cases she had investigated. Husbands who decided their wives were worth more dead than alive. Andrew's defense was pathetic. He claimed the policy was for family protection. He claimed the fall was an accident. He claimed he had never intended to hurt me. No one believed him. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. 4 hours to decide the fate of the man I had married, the man I had trusted, the man I had given everything to. Guilty. Guilty on all counts. Fraud, tax evasion, conspiracy to commit murder. Andrew's face when they read the verdict was something I will never forget. The shock, the disbelief, the moment he finally understood that his money and his charm and his manipulation could not save him. He was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison, 12 years in a cell, 12 years to think about what he had done, 12 years to regret every lie he had ever told. When the judge announced the sentence, Andrew looked at me. Just for a moment, his eyes were empty, defeated, broken. I did not look away. I wanted him to see that I was not broken, to see that I had won. Tori's trial came next. She tried to blame everything on Andrew, said he had manipulated her, said he had promised to leave me, said she was just a victim of his lies too. The jury did not buy it. They saw the photograph she had sent me. They are calling me mommy now. They heard about the bruises she had given herself. They listened to the testimony about the kidnapping, about how she had stolen my children in the middle of the night and tried to flee to Mexico. She was convicted of kidnapping. 8 years in prison. But that was not the worst part for Tori. The worst part was losing her baby. She gave birth in prison to a little girl, a beautiful little girl with Andrew's eyes. And because Tori was a convicted felon who had kidnapped children, she was deemed unfit to be a mother. Her baby was adopted by her sister Catherine. Tori would watch her daughter grow up through photographs and occasional supervised visits. She would never hold her without a guard watching. She would never read her bedtime stories or see her first steps or hear her say mama. That was justice, real justice, the kind that hurts. Robert Ashford divorced Tori while she was awaiting trial. He got everything in the settlement, the house, the savings, everything she had brought into their marriage. He sent me a card afterward, 2 words on expensive stationery. Thank you, I understood. We were both survivors of the same shipwreck. We had both been betrayed by the same people, and we had both found a way to keep swimming. Linda Miller surprised everyone at the trial. She testified against her own son, sat in that witness box and told the court about the money he had stolen from her retirement accounts, about the lies he had told since childhood, about the monster she had raised and the guilt she would carry forever. After the verdict, she changed her will. Everything she had would go to Noah and Liam when she died, not to Andrew, not to any charity, to the grandchildren she had almost lost because of her son's choices. She also set up trust funds for both boys, $500,000 each, money they would receive when they turned 25, money that would give them opportunities their father had tried to steal. Linda started visiting us every Sunday. It was awkward at first. I could not forget how cold she had been to me during my marriage, how she had always taken Andrew's side, how she had believed his lies. But she was trying, really trying. She would get on the floor and play with the twins. She would read them stories and bake them cookies and spoil them the way grandmothers are supposed to, and the twins adored her. They did not know what she had done. They did not know about her testimony or her guilt. They just knew that Grandma Linda brought presents and gave the best hugs. Maybe that was enough. Maybe redemption was possible, even for people who had made terrible mistakes. Detective Sarah Webb was promoted to lieutenant after our case. She used it in training seminars for new officers. How to spot financial abuse, how to investigate suspicious accidents, how to believe women when they say something is wrong. Every year on the anniversary of the kidnapping, she sent me a card, just a few words. Still thinking of you, still proud of you. And Marcus Bennett? Marcus was named Family Law Attorney of the Year by the Colorado Bar Association. He received offers from 3 bigger firms, More money, more prestige, more everything. He turned them all down. He said Denver was his home. He said he had everything he needed right here. He also kept bringing wine to my mother's house every Sunday, a different bottle each week. We would drink it on the porch while the twins played, and Biscuit chased squirrels he was never going to catch. One year after the final custody hearing, I was sitting on my mother's porch, watching the twins play in the backyard. They were 2 years old now, walking and talking and getting into everything, covered in mud from their latest adventure, laughing at absolutely nothing. Noah had my eyes. Dark brown with those same long lashes I had always hated on myself but loved on him. Liam had Andrew's nose, but with none of Andrew's cruelty. They were good boys, kind boys, boys who would grow up knowing what love looked like, boys who would never treat women the way their father had treated me. You know, my mother said, sitting beside me with 2 glasses of wine, that Marcus is very handsome. Mom, I'm just saying, she smiled innocently. He has been coming to Sunday dinners for a year now. Either he really loves my pot roast, or he really loves my daughter. I laughed. For the first time in a long time, I laughed freely, without fear, without looking over my shoulder, without wondering what would go wrong next. I am not ready to date, I said. I do not know if I will ever be ready. Andrew broke something in me. I am still putting the pieces back together. That is fine, my mother said. But when you are ready, make sure it is someone who shows up, someone who is present, someone who chooses you every single day, not just when it is convenient. I looked at my boys rolling in the grass with Biscuit. I looked at the blue sky above us. I looked at the life I had built from the ashes of my marriage. I chose myself, I said. That is enough for now. My mother squeezed my hand. That is enough for always, baby. That is enough for always. 2 years later, I bought a house. Not an apartment, not a rental, a house. With my name on the deed. Bought with my own money that I had earned at my own job. If you had told me on that Christmas Eve 4 years ago that I would be standing in my own home, with my own career, with my own life, I would have laughed, or cried, or both. But here I was. It was a Craftsman in Boulder with a red door and a wraparound porch. The kind of house I had dreamed about as a little girl. The kind of house I thought I would never have. 3 bedrooms, one for me, one for the twins, one for guests, or maybe someday something else. A backyard big enough for the boys to run around. Trees to climb. Space for a swing set. Room for Biscuit to chase squirrels he would never catch. A kitchen where I could actually cook instead of just surviving on takeout and frozen meals. The first night we slept there, I walked through every room, touched every wall, opened every closet. This was mine, all of it. No one could take it away. No one could freeze my accounts or change the locks or use it against me in court. Mine. The twins were 4 years old now. They started preschool in the fall at a little school 3 blocks from our house. They had friends and teachers who loved them and a routine that did not involve police stations or courtrooms. Noah was obsessed with dinosaurs. He could name every species from every period. He corrected adults who got their facts wrong. He was going to be a paleontologist or a professor or something else that started with a P. Liam was the artist. He drew pictures constantly. Our refrigerator was covered with his masterpieces. Dogs that looked like cats. Houses that looked like boats. A family portrait that made me cry because he had drawn me smiling. They still asked about their father sometimes. Where is Daddy? Why does Daddy live in that big building with the guards? I told them the truth, as much as 4-year-olds could understand. Daddy made some bad choices. Daddy has to stay somewhere for a while so he can think about those choices. Daddy loves you, but he cannot be here right now. I did not know if Andrew loved them. I was not sure Andrew was capable of loving anyone except himself. But I would not poison my children against their father. They would figure out the truth eventually. They always did. I had a job too. Vice President of Operations at a healthcare technology company called MedTech Solutions. My boss was a man named James Cooper, who had hired me 3 years earlier when I was still fighting for custody. I had walked into that interview with bags under my eyes and a resume full of gaps. I had told him honestly that I was going through a difficult divorce, that I had twins at home, that I could not promise to work 80-hour weeks or travel every month. He had hired me anyway. You deserve this promotion, James said when he told me about the VP position. You work harder than anyone I have ever met. You solve problems no one else can solve. And you do it all while being an incredible mother. I have a good reason to work hard, I said. Two of them, actually. Life was good, not perfect. Perfect does not exist, but good. Really, genuinely, surprisingly good. Andrew wrote to me from prison sometimes, letters full of apologies and explanations and requests to see the boys. Long paragraphs about how he had changed, how he understood now what he had done wrong, how he would be different if I gave him another chance. I threw them away without reading them. Some doors are meant to stay closed. Some bridges are meant to stay burned. Andrew had made his choices. I had made mine. And there was nothing in those letters that could change the past or fix the damage or give me back the years he had stolen. One Sunday evening, Marcus was helping the twins build a block tower while my mother and I cleaned up after dinner. This had become our routine. Sunday dinners at my new house, wine and laughter, and family. He is good with them, my mother observed, watching through the window. Natural, like he was born to be a father. I know. And he looks at you like you hung the moon, like you are the most incredible thing he has ever seen. Mom, please, do not start. I am not pushing. I am just observing. She paused, drying a dish slowly. But for what it is worth, I think you should let yourself be happy. You have earned it. More than anyone I have ever known, you have earned it. I watched Marcus through the window. He was pretending the block tower was a castle under siege, and the twins were dragons trying to knock it down. All three of them were laughing so hard they could barely breathe. He made sound effects for the dragon fire. He pretended to be terrified when Noah's dragon attacked. He let Liam knock down the entire tower and then celebrated like it was the greatest victory in history. Maybe, I said, maybe someday. Someday came sooner than I expected. It was Christmas Eve, exactly 4 years after the night that destroyed my old life. The night I found my husband at that cabin. The night everything changed. I was decorating the tree in my new house, and the twins were arguing about which ornament went where. The same argument they had been having for 20 minutes. That one goes on top, Noah insisted, holding up a glittery angel. No, this one, Liam countered, holding up a silver star. We can put both on top, I said diplomatically. This tree has room for all of us. They looked at each other, considered this compromise, then simultaneously tried to climb the tree to reach the top branch. I caught them both before they brought the whole thing crashing down. There was a knock at the door. Marcus stood on the porch wearing the ugliest Christmas sweater I had ever seen. Reindeer doing yoga poses, covered in actual jingle bells that rang every time he moved. A pom-pom on the collar that looked like it was trying to escape. You said ugly sweater party, he said with complete seriousness. I committed to the bit. I laughed so hard I snorted. Actual snorted. That thing is a war crime. The Geneva Convention specifically prohibits that sweater. I know, I am very proud. I searched for 3 weeks to find something this offensive. The twins heard his voice and came running. They tackled his legs simultaneously, and he fell dramatically onto the porch. Jingle bells ringing everywhere, pretending to be mortally wounded by the dragon attack. Inside, my mother was making hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. Biscuit was wearing his annual reindeer antlers with his usual expression of patient resignation and deep regret about his life choices. The house smelled like cinnamon and pine, and everything good. Later that night, after the twins had crashed from their sugar high and my mother had gone home, Marcus and I sat on the back porch watching snowfall. 4 years ago, he said, you walked into my office looking like you were held together by coffee and spite. That is because I was held together by coffee and spite. And not very much of either, and now look at you. Now I am held together by coffee, spite, and a really good therapist. I paused. Also wine. Lots of wine, he laughed. Progress. Progress. He took my hand. I let him. His fingers were warm against mine. Rachel, I have been wanting to ask you something. If it is about the coffee maker, I already know I broke it. I am buying a new one. It is not about the coffee maker. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. My heart stopped. I am not Andrew, he said. His voice was serious now. I never will be. I cannot promise you perfect, because perfect does not exist. but I can promise you present. I can promise you partnership. I can promise that I will show up every single day, and I will keep showing up even when it is hard, especially when it is hard. He opened the box. A simple diamond ring, elegant and unpretentious. Exactly what I would have chosen for myself. Rachel Elizabeth Miller, will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that you made the right choice? I looked at him, at his kind eyes and his ridiculous sweater and his hands that had never hurt me, at the house behind us that I had bought with my own money, at the snow falling softly in the darkness, at the life I had built from nothing, the life no one could ever take away. Ask me properly, counselor. He grinned. That smile I had been seeing for 4 years, the smile that always made me feel safe. Will you marry me? Yes, but I am keeping my name. I would not expect anything else. We got married in June in my mother's backyard, with the twins as ring bearers and Biscuit as the world's most distracted flower dog. I had dreamed about my wedding day since I was a little girl, but the wedding I had imagined, the one with Andrew, had been about impressing people, about appearances, about the dress and the venue and the guest list. This wedding was about love, real love, the kind that shows up. It was a small ceremony, just family and close friends, the people who had been there through the worst of it, who had helped me rebuild when everything fell apart, the people who had believed me when no one else did. 32 guests, that was all, and it was perfect. The twins walked down the aisle first, carrying the rings on pillows my mother had embroidered with their initials. Noah took his job very seriously. Liam kept waving at everyone he recognized. Biscuit followed behind them, wearing a bow tie and carrying a basket of flower petals that he kept trying to eat. I walked down the aisle alone, not because I had no one to walk with me. My mother had offered, but I wanted to do this myself. I wanted to walk toward my future on my own 2 feet. Marcus cried when he saw me, actual tears running down his face. He did not try to hide them. He did not pretend to be tough. He just stood there and let himself feel everything. That was when I knew I had chosen right. Linda Miller came, my former mother-in-law, the woman who had testified against her own son to save me. She sat in the front row and cried through the whole ceremony. Afterward, she hugged me and whispered 2 words. Thank you. I understood what she meant. Thank you for letting her stay in the boys' lives. Thank you for not holding Andrew's sins against her. Thank you for giving her a chance at redemption. Detective Webb came too. She brought her wife Angela and a very nice bottle of champagne. She was wearing a dress instead of her usual pantsuit. I almost did not recognize her. You look beautiful, I told her. So do you, she said. So do you. Jack Callahan, the private investigator, sent flowers with a card that said, glad I could help. Told you we would get him. William Harrison, the forensic accountant, sent a fruit basket and a note about how this was the most satisfying case of his career. My mother gave a toast. She stood up in her lavender dress, holding a glass of champagne, and the whole backyard went quiet. 4 years ago, she said, her voice steady, but her eyes bright with tears. My daughter came to me in the middle of the night with 2 babies and a broken heart. She had been betrayed by someone she trusted. She had lost almost everything. Her home, her money, her sense of safety, almost her children. She paused. But she did not give up. She fought when fighting seemed impossible. She planned when everyone said she was crazy. She built something beautiful from wreckage and ashes. And today she stands here with a new life, a new love, and 2 beautiful boys who will grow up knowing what real strength looks like. Who will grow up knowing what real love looks like. She raised her glass to Rachel, my daughter, my hero, the woman who refused to be broken. Everyone drank. I tried not to cry. I failed completely. After the reception, Marcus and I took the twins to get ice cream. Our first official act as a family. Not a fancy dinner, not a romantic getaway. Ice cream with 2 5-year-olds who had just discovered they could order triple scoops. Noah got chocolate all over his face, his shirt, his shoes. I think some of it ended up in his hair. Liam dropped his cone 3 steps out of the shop and needed a replacement. Then he dropped that one too. The 3rd cone finally made it. Biscuit somehow ended up wearing sprinkles. No one knew how. He seemed very pleased about it. It was chaos, it was messy, it was loud, it was perfect. That night, after the boys were asleep and the house was quiet, I wrote in my journal. The same journal I had been keeping since the twins were born. June 23rd. Today I got married. Not because I needed someone to save me. Not because I could not survive alone. I had already proven I could do that. I married Marcus because I chose someone who chooses me back. Someone who shows up. Someone who is present. Someone who sees me, all of me, and loves me anyway. I looked at my sleeping boys through the doorway of their room. Noah had kicked off his blankets. Liam was clutching his stuffed giraffe. I thought my story ended on a Christmas Eve 4 years ago, I wrote. I was wrong. That was just the end of someone else's story about me. The story Andrew wrote, where I was small and silent and scared. This is my story now. The one I am writing myself. The one where I am strong. The one where I won. Marcus appeared beside me. He smelled like champagne and cake and happiness. Both out cold, he said, nodding at the twins. They had a big day. So did their mom. He wrapped his arms around me from behind. How does it feel? Being married again. Different, I said. Good different. Safe different. We stood there watching our children sleep. Our children. Because that was what they were now, not just mine. Ours. You know, Marcus said quietly, when you first came to my office, I thought you were the bravest person I had ever met. A woman fighting for her kids against impossible odds. A woman who had every reason to give up but refused. I still think that. I will always think that. I leaned into him. I was terrified, I admitted. The whole time. Every single day. Bravery is not the absence of fear, he said. It is action despite fear. You taught me that. You taught everyone who knows your story that. I smiled. Since when did you become a philosopher? Since I married one. 5 years after our wedding, I stood at a podium in a hotel ballroom, looking out at 200 faces. The National Coalition Against Domestic Violence had asked me to speak at their annual conference. They wanted me to share my story, to help other women who were trapped in marriages like mine, to show them that escape was possible, that survival was possible, that happiness after horror was possible. I had said yes without hesitation. Thank you all for being here, I began. My hands were steady on the podium. My voice was clear. My name is Rachel Miller Bennett. 9 years ago, I was decorating a Christmas tree, believing I had the perfect life. I was wrong about everything. But I also learned something that saved me, something I want to share with every woman in this room. I paused, looking at the audience. Some were survivors like me. I could see it in their eyes. That look of someone who has been to hell and walked back out. Some were advocates. Some were lawyers and social workers and police officers who dealt with cases like mine every day. Some were still trapped. I could see that too. Women who had snuck away from controlling husbands to be here. Women who were looking for hope. I learned that leaving is not the end of the story, I said. It is the beginning. I learned that the woman you were before you met him, the woman he tried to erase, she is still in there, buried under his cruelty and his lies and his manipulation. But she is there, and she is so much stronger than you know, so much braver than you believe. I talked for 45 minutes about the affair, about the manipulation, about discovering my husband had taken out an insurance policy on my life, about losing my children and getting them back, about building a new life from the ashes of the old one. I did not sugarcoat anything. I told them about the nights I wanted to give up, the moments I thought I could not survive, the fear that never completely went away. But I also told them about the victory, the life I had now. When I finished, the applause was overwhelming. 200 people on their feet, some of them crying, some of them clapping so hard their hands must have hurt. I had never felt so seen, so understood, so grateful to be alive. Afterward, a young woman approached me. She could not have been older than 25, pretty in that exhausted way I recognized from my own mirror years ago. She was shaking. I am in that house right now, she whispered. The one you described. The one where nothing is ever good enough. Where everything is my fault. Where I am always walking on eggshells. I do not know how to get out. I took her hands. They were cold, trembling. Do you have children? I asked. 2, she said. A boy and a girl. 4 and 6. Do you have anyone you trust? Family, friends? Anyone at all? My sister. She lives in California. She has been begging me to leave for years. Then here is what you do. I squeezed her hands. Document everything. Every text, every email. Every time he threatens you or scares you or makes you feel small. Keep copies in multiple places. Cloud storage. Your sister's house. A safety deposit box. And when you are ready, when you have your plan, call this number. I gave her Marcus's card. He is my husband, I said. But more importantly, he is the best family law attorney in Colorado. He has helped dozens of women like us. He will help you too. The woman looked at the card, then at me. Her eyes were filling with tears. How did you know you were ready? She asked. To leave. How did you know? I did not know. That is the truth. I just decided that being afraid of leaving was better than being afraid of staying. I decided that my children deserved a mother who was not broken. I decided that I was worth fighting for. Even when I did not believe it. Even when he had convinced me I was worthless. She hugged me. A stranger. Someone I might never see again. But in that moment, we were connected by something bigger than either of us. The sisterhood of survivors. The bond of women who had walked through fire. Be brave, I whispered into her hair. You can do this. I believe in you. Your sister believes in you. And someday, your children will thank you. That night, I came home to find Marcus in the kitchen with the twins. Noah was 11 now, tall and serious and obsessed with marine biology. Liam was right behind him. The artist who still covered our refrigerator with drawings. They were making dinner together, which meant the kitchen looked like a disaster zone. Flour everywhere, sauce on the ceiling somehow, biscuit licking something off the floor. But the food smelled amazing. How was the speech? Marcus asked, kissing my cheek. Good, really good. I think I helped someone today. You always help someone, he smiled. That is who you are. That is who you have always been. The twins set the table while Marcus finished cooking. Biscuit, now old and gray around the muzzle, watched from his bed in the corner. He did not chase squirrels anymore. He just supervised. My mother arrived with dessert, same as every Sunday. Apple pie with ice cream, the boys' favorite. We sat down to dinner. A family, whole and imperfect and wonderfully real, talking over each other and laughing at bad jokes and passing dishes back and forth. This was what I had fought for. This ordinary, extraordinary life. After the twins went to bed, I stood at the window of our house, watching snow fall. Same window where I had stood so many times. Different view, different life. I thought about who I was 9 years ago, a woman trapped in a beautiful prison, believing she had no way out. A woman who did not recognize her own strength. A woman who had forgotten who she was. And I thought about who I was now. A survivor, a mother, a wife, a speaker who helped other women find their courage. A woman who had built an empire from rubble. I had lost everything once. Everything I thought mattered, and I had built something better from the wreckage. Something real. Something mine. If you are listening to this and you are still in that house, still believing his lies, still thinking you cannot survive without him, hear me. You can. You will. The woman you were before he broke you is still inside you. She is waiting for you to remember her. She is waiting for you to set her free. Leave. Plan. Fight. Win. And when you do, when you finally walk out that door and never look back, remember this. You did not just survive. You became. You became the woman you were always meant to be. Stronger than you knew. Braver than you believed. More powerful than he ever imagined. The snow continued to fall, soft and silent. Inside, my house was warm and full of love. Outside, the world was cold but beautiful. Somewhere in a prison cell in Colorado, Andrew was living with the consequences of his choices. 12 years of consequences. 12 years to think about everything he had lost. And I was living with mine. Peace, love, family, hope. Not bad for a woman who drove away on Christmas Eve with nothing but 2 babies and the clothes on her back. Not bad at all. Marcus came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. What are you thinking about? He asked. Everything, I said. How far we have come. How much we have survived. How grateful I am for this life. He kissed my temple. You deserve every bit of it. And for the first time in my life, I believe that. I really, truly believe that. The end. For every woman who found the courage to leave, and for every woman still finding hers. You are not alone. You are worth fighting for, and your story is just beginning. National Domestic Violence Hotline. 1-800-79-97233. Call them, tell them Rachel sent you, and then start writing your own story. For every woman who found the courage to leave, and for every woman still finding hers. National Domestic Violence Hotline. 1-800-799-7233. You are not alone. You are worth fighting for. And your story is just beginning. If Rachel's story touched your heart, if it made you feel something, if it reminded you of someone who needs to hear this, I have a small favor to ask. Hit that like button. It helps more women find this story when they need it most. Leave a comment, tell me your thoughts, or just type the word strong. Let me know you made it to the end. Share this video with someone who might be in that house right now. You never know whose life you might change. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe and turn on notifications. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. And remember, you did not just survive, you became. See you in the next story.